So now let's take a look at adding the content to our home page. So I'm going to just jump straight into this and open up the home.vue file, and let's get rid of the current components and content that's on here. So now we're starting with a clean template, and what I want to do is just add in a heading, and this can say something simple like the best coffee in town. And what I want to do here is add in a class on the heading just to make this nice and big and bold. So let's add in a class of text 3XL, and then we'll also add in font bold to make that bold. Now I want to center that text. So let's go over to the parent div actually, and let's add in class of text center, just so that any other text we add into this div will be centered as well. So now that's in the center. The next thing I want to do is add in a button that's going to be a call to action, and it will link to the order page. Now we don't have an order page just yet, but let's just create the button for now. So let's start with a router link, and we'll give this some text of make an order. And this isn't actually going to show up until we add in our to prop, and we just need to make sure that this links to something. Like I said, we don't have an order page at the moment, so let's just link this to the home page. So now the text is there. The next thing we want to do is actually style this so that it looks like a button. So I'm going to add in a class of bg red 500, and that'll make it red. We also want to maybe just have some white text. Display this as a flex box, justify the content to the center so that it's centered, and then add in some padding just to give our button a little bit of height. And now let's give it a width of W48 so that it is only so wide, and then we'll add in a class of MX auto to position it back to the center of our div. And now we can probably just say MT5 to give it a margin on the top of 5, or I guess we could do MB5 on our heading and then remove that one. So it's up to you, either one. I think I'm actually going to go with the heading because I might want to use this button somewhere else. So now that I have got the button here, the next thing I want to do is add in a background image to our homepage. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to be really lazy about this, and I'm not even going to save the image. I'm just going to copy paste the URL, and then I'm going to just add that as a background image onto this div. And in fact, I think what I'm going to do is add in another wrapper element here. So let's create a section tag, and I'm going to give this an inline style of background image, and we'll set that to have a URL of something, and of course those need to be single quotes, and then we'll just paste in the URL from Pexels. Of course, you're probably going to want to download the image and save it on your computer or in your project. I'm just going to be super lazy about this and not do that. And then what I want to do is take this div and just pop that into the section above there. Great, so now if we save this and we come back over to the browser again, or to our tab over here, we have a background image on our page. Now we can't see the heading though, so let's make our heading have a class of text white, just so that we've got the white heading there, and that's a lot easier to see. Now, what I'd like to do is try and position our footer at the bottom of the page. So we're not going to be working on the home page for this. We're actually going to be working in app view. And basically the look I'm going for here is I want the content on our page to be the full width of the screen. I want the footer to be all the way at the bottom, and I want the heading to be fixed. So let's start off by making the router view, which is the content of our page. Let's make that have a minimum height of the screen. So let's add in a class of min h screen. And so this is actually going to be a very cool positioning trick, by the way. And yeah, if you can figure out how to use this, it's going to be really powerful. If you can't figure it out, well, I'm going to let you download all of this code for free on GitHub anyway, and you can sit and figure it out. But now we have a content that is the height of our screen, but we actually have to scroll to see the footer. And that's because we haven't accommodated for the fact that our footer has a height and our heading also has a height. So we need to try and accommodate for those heights so that our footer appears right down here where I want it to. So let's add in a class on our footer of absolute. And I'm also going to give this a class of bottom 0. And well, now our footer is down here. It'll be a lot easier to see if I add in a background color of white. So we can see that our footer is down there. It just needs to be full width. So I'm going to also add in a class of wfull. And because I know that I'm going to have to accommodate for this height, I also just want to give it a fixed height of h12 as well. Great. So now our footer is there, but if I scroll down, well, I've still got a little bit of space down here. And it turns out that this space is actually the exact height of our header. If you scroll up and down, you'll probably be able to notice that. So what I want to do here is I want to pull our header out of the document flow, because that's exactly what we've done with our footer, is we've pulled this out of flow. And we're going to have to do the same thing with the header. But before I actually do that, I'm going to go to this parent div, and let's give this a class of relative. And when I save this now, the footer is going to pop all the way down to the bottom of the page. So now it's down here. And that's because we're now positioning our footer absolutely to the bottom of this div and not absolutely to the bottom of our HTML document. So now if we scroll, the footer is actually all the way down there at the bottom. But we've still got this annoying little scroll to deal with. And that scroll happens to be the exact height of this heading. So what we actually want to do here is figure out how high our heading is. And if I take a look at this, well, I know that we've got a fixed height in our heading of h16, which is set there and also set up here, right? So now that I know that I've got that height to work with, let's, on our router view, give this a negative margin on the top of 16. So now we're actually accommodating for the height of that heading. And now our page doesn't scroll anymore. But we also have this problem where our header isn't visible anymore. So let's take a look at fixing that. So I'm going to give this a class of sticky, and let's stick it to the top of the screen. And let's also give it a background of white. So now we have our header and we have our footer, and they're both appearing exactly where I want them to be. But we've got content that is hidden behind the header. So we need to accommodate for that now. So let's, on our router view, add in a padding top of 16, which is going to counteract the margin on the top of 16. And that should bring our content down. And then the next thing we're going to have to do is accommodate for the footer as well, because that's going to have the same problem. So if I come back over to, let's go over to the home page, I can just demonstrate the problem. So in the div or in the content over here, let's just create a paragraph, and let's add in a v4, and let's just loop through I in 10. And this is just going to make this paragraph loop 10 times. So let's add in some lorem ipsum. So now we've got a lot of lorem ipsum there. It's not very visible because it's all black. So let's just add in a class of text white. Right. But now we've got all this content. And if we scroll, you'll notice that this is probably also going behind the footer. If I take the background off the footer, we'll be able to see that. Yeah, we have the white text going behind the footer. So we just need to accommodate for the height of this footer as well. And we know that the height of the footer is h12. So I'm just going to add pb12. And now we've accommodated for that. And there shouldn't be any text behind the footer. So if I take that that background away. Yeah, the only content in the footer is the text that's supposed to be in the footer. Great, so we've got the entire positioning of our document set up. Let's go back over to the home page, get rid of this paragraph, and save this. And I guess we can just focus on positioning this text and this button in the center of the page. So what I want to do here is on this parent div that has the class of text center, let's display that as a flex box, and we'll add in a flex col just so that the button and the header are above one another. And then we'll also justify that to the center, and I think items center, and that should fix it. Nope. I guess what we've also got to do here is W full. Okay, so that still hasn't worked. Let's just inspect this and let's see. The height of this is only that high. The height of our section is that high. So we just need to try and make this div the same height as its parent. I guess what I really want to do here is on this section in our, at the top of our document here, let's also give this a class of flex, and there we go. It's now centered everything. So the next thing I might want to do just to finish this off is add in a background color behind the heading, just to make that a little bit easier to read and try and separate the image and the button and the heading over here. So what I'm going to do is just take this div out, add in another wrapping element here, and then I'm just going to give this one a class of bg black 50. And well, yeah, now we've separated the content a little bit, but I guess I've undone some of my work. So let's take that flex class and place that here as well. And then also let's just make sure that that is full width. Great, so now we've separated the background image from our content a little bit. And if you wanted to make this color lighter, I suppose you could always go back to your Tailwind classes and just change this so that we've got a BG black 30 color, which we don't have at the moment, but I suppose we could just add that in by simply doing BG black 30 and then changing this to 0.3. And if I save this now, yeah, there we go. We now have a slightly lighter, more transparent black. And now we've got a few little things that we need to fix up. So if we open up the menu, you can see that the footer is actually appearing above our menu. So we want to fix that by just adding a class of Z50 to bring that a little bit higher up the Z index. Then if we open this up on a desktop size screen, I haven't actually looked at that, but we have a image that is repeating. So we've got a seam, and if I were to use the full height of my screen, we've actually got a couple seams here. So we want to get rid of that by just using some of Tailwind's classes on the section with the background image. So I'm going to add in a class of BG center to align that in the center, and then a class of BG cover to make the background cover. And now, if we look at that on a desktop size screen, we don't have any seams. The next thing I want to do is maybe just put the menu in a container. Let's open up the header navigation, and on this div inside of the header, let's add in a class of container and mx auto. And that should have put our header into a container, but we can't see it with the screen at this size. But if I make my screen bigger, well, there we go. Our header is now in the container. The next thing I want to do is just go over to the About page and add in a little bit of content over here, because this page is looking a little empty. So what I want to do is maybe on this div, add in a class of container and mx auto, and we can probably even do a class of py5 so that it's got a little bit of space on the top and bottom of this container. In fact, let's not use the padding over there. Let's put it on the title. So I'm going to say mt5. Oops. There we go. Okay, so now we've got the padding appearing, and then the next thing I want to do is just make this bold. So font bold and text 3XL. And then we can add in a little bit of content on this page as well. So and now we've got a couple paragraphs here. Of course, if we wanted to have a lot more paragraphs, V for I and 100. But now we can see what a lot of content would look like on our site, and we can just make sure that the footer behaves as we want it to. And if we look at this on a mobile phone, we can also test the scrollability here. And again, I'm seeing another little fix that we can make, which is the container on a mobile device doesn't actually have any padding on the side of that. So let's add in px3, but only for mobile. So when we get to a large container, I'll set that to have a class of px0 and take away the padding. So now we've got some space. And if we look at this on a desktop again, yeah, we don't actually have that space on desktop. So everything should still be lining up just fine. And before we end off this video, I just want to say thank you for watching. Pause the video now. There's a bunch of things that I'd like you to do. So read the text on screen. I'd like you to join the channel, buy the merch, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.